Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious, cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the show Connected. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Today we're going to look at the cycles of life and the process of initiation. However, I also want to talk a little bit about the presidential debate that's happening in the United States. And I always start off with a little bit of a review of what we did last week to kind of bridge it forward. However, at this very moment, the US presidential debate is happening. And so as a woman of service, first and foremost, I certainly have my energetic preferences. I put my energy out for what I would love to see happen in humanity. But I also know that it's not my place as a woman of service to take sides. That whatever happens has a greater process. Either, if it leans one way, those who get upset have to work on how to find the peace and the flow and the ease. What is it teaching them? How is it working for them to actually expand and grow themselves in maybe a more positive way? And again, if it swings to the other side, the same thing for those types of people. And as a woman of service, I work with all people. I work with humanity. I work with people who are going to feel the effects of whoever wins the presidential race come November. And some people can have a lot of terror, a lot of fear, a lot of just complete feeling in a place of despair, depression, anxiety, some of these really kind of intense emotions that come up, and it can be on either side of the, different political parties. So my service, of course, is just to always be there to help each person, no matter where they're at, work with the energy, work with the opportunity that is available to help them grow with the opportunity that's being presented, with whatever is happening. Now, I also just want to mention that it's a wonderful place to sit. I'm going to say wonderful, but I want to encourage people to sit in the place of curiosity and being curious about how each presidential candidate responds and reacts and is communicating and how they're actually delivering their information. Everything is about energy. So the way that each one of those presidential candidates are presenting themselves also has a lot of information as to how they will run that presidency, how they'll run the United States government. And then also connecting in. Are they connecting to the United States people? Are they connecting into a agenda? And how might these connection points feel within you? How are you connecting into what is being offered, delivered, shown, even through this debate, right? So, of course, if you're joining with me live right now, you might watch parts of the debate on the news or media and kind of go back and see some of this. And some people I know for sure are watching the debate and may see this show later, but it's really about going back and looking at this. This is on, this is being recorded. We can see this opportunity to see what is the energy behind these two different candidates. How are they going to show up for not only the American people, but even as representatives of the superpower country for the world? Because what happens in the United States actually is the leader of what's happening in many other countries, right? If the United States is doing it, other political leaders look at saying, well, if they're doing it, I can do this too, right? So we're looking at some of that as well. And the very beginning of our time together, episode 1, I talked about how we all have this already built-in energy connection. That if we ask, show me the truth, is this true? And I talked about body talk and about how we all can ask our bodies, body, show me yes. And then really feel into our physical body. Where do we feel a sensation? How is that coming up for us? This is what yes feels like in my body. Now I asked, just do it many times to get really familiar, because when we ask that and it shows up in one place the first time, we want it by the 20th time, we want to know that that same place is that place, right? So we have to do it repetitively to know where the yes really lives in our energy field, in our bodies. It's a sensation. It's going to show up in a certain way. And for everybody, it can be different, right? So what it is for me is going to be different for you. Now, also show me no. How does no feel in my body? Same process, same practice, doing it multiple times. And we can even ask this and we connect into the higher knowing of the conscious cosmos, connecting into that higher benevolent, the good, the true, the truth that we may not know because our world is constantly trying to throw curveballs at us as to what truth really is. But this is where we connect into the matrix, into the conscious web of what is harmonically, let me see if I can get my words out, true in the highest sense of truth. And we can say, is this person honest and being true? And we can feel this. We can do this with political figures. We can also do this with our people, like our significant others and whatnot. But political people, those who are out even in the media, have then put themselves out there that we can ask these questions about. We can kind of dive into their energy fields to see, is this an honest and true person? Are they really speaking their truth? Are they really going to do that? Do they believe in this? Or are they just saying this because they think it's going to appease the greater number of people, right? So these are the things I invite everybody to connect into. This is the connection point of energy. How do we see this in two people debating about some very specific US issues? And how is that, feeling for us? Are they speaking the truth? And we can ask those questions. So even if you're going to get to this video after the debate, go back and see, what were some of the things that you remember. You can even ask it through your memory, or you can even watch some of the snippets that are going to be posted on different media sites, YouTube, whatever, and be able to bring that information in. So I just wanted to bring that out because this is an opportunity for us to recognize energy, how energy works, and what we can actually do to get our own information that's really going to help inform us for our own decisions, or how we're going to walk the path forward with whatever happens to the United States in the future if you're living in the United States, right? So thank you for just receiving that, or I invite you to receive it in whatever level that is, because it's definitely energy on all the levels. That is not one opinion or another. It's just an opportunity to explore and practice it, right? So review from last week. Now we're going to move into last week. Last week, we were celebrating summer solstice. It was the actual day of that transition, moving from spring into summer. And we're going to bring up the chart I played that we showed last week, just as a little reminder, because we were looking at the seasons. And we were looking at how we were moving from spring into summer, and how even here on this chart, on this wheel, we're looking at summer at the bottom, because if we look at a wheel, and we look at North America, so this is very poignant for North America, because The south and summer are connected to the equator in the way that the earth rotates, right? So we're going to get more sun, and we kind of connect that at the bottom of the chart where we are, below us is the equator. It's where the sun and the heat, and the earth is tilted in that direction. And so we're getting a lot more of that. And then, of course, in the north, where we have Yule on this chart, this is the winter time. This is where the earth is tilted in a different direction, where we're getting less light, right? So we're celebrating the day of the most light and the night of the least amount of darkness for summer solstice. And then for South America, or the southern hemisphere, of course, Australia as well, different, parts of Africa. There are also, they're experiencing the shift where they are shifted towards the darkness. So, and then we can also look to see, on this chart, springtime here, we call this, in earth-centered spirituality, Ostara. It's the time of spring and life kind of budding into its new cycle, the spring cycle. And then in the West, we have the autumnal equinox and our fall, when we've completed these cycles. And so again, this is just a little bit of review, because we've been looking at cycles, and the cycle of the year, I was also connecting to the cycles of lifetimes. So we're looking at one whole life, and about how we're born. We can see ourselves being born in the springtime, and how we have a certain amount of time that we are in our youth. And then we reach the summer, and this is when we become our adults. We fully landed into who we're going to be in the world, what our passion is. That south, that fire, that heat is really about our passion, about our action. What are we doing in the world? How are we making our money? What's our career path? Who are we choosing to create family with? Who is our significant spouse if we're going to have children? Or who's our significant, partner for not having children, but we're creating that fire that is going to be our, hopefully our significant person through our lifetime. And then we're moving into the West. This is the time of our retirement. It's this time where the leaves of the trees are falling, but that we also have kind of like harvested our life, and now we get to sit back and see all that we've connected to, like all that we've created. And again, we plant the seeds in the springtime. These are oftentimes like even just being able to, this is where we hit our puberty, and this is where we come into our 20s, and that's the springtime. This is also like our dreams and aspirations of what we want for our lives, so that when we come into the summertime, we've planted the seeds. Those seeds have been growing, and now we're really putting our energy to grow that harvest of our lifetime, to grow that career, to grow that family, to really reap. We're not reaping yet, but we're growing it in a way that we can really just powerfully connect into all of what our life is about. And then we move into that fall time, and this is where we might be at the end of our working career. We're possibly looking at that retirement. We're looking at the family, if we had a family. We're looking at whether our children had children, if we're grandparents or not. We're looking at the fruits of our labor, right? And then we're also moving in to this place where we are heading back into the north, and the north is around the death. It's the time of us to start it all over. And within a life cycle, that north part is where we go back to spirit. We go back to where our consciousness came from. We reflect, we prepare ourselves so that we are actually taking everything that we learned from the last lifetime, and we're bringing it in to this process where we're working it through. Is there unfinished business that I might need to bring into the next lifetime? So this is part of our karma. I talked about some karma and how karma comes forward. Who were we? How did we treat others? That's going to come forward in our next lifetime. But it's this whole process. It's this whole process that brings us through different life incarnations. Now we're going to go ahead and take a very quick break, another 2-minute break. And when we get back, we're going to dive in further into these life cycles. And we're even going to start to look at them as part of what's called an initiation process. So with that, take your 2 minutes and I'll see you back here.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey there, welcome back. So we are talking about life cycles. And life cycles, I mean, we have so many of them. And I just was talking about the difference between 1 year and a lifetime. And I also want to look at life cycles in many different ways. And so we're going to bring in another image here just to have it kind of play out so that we can recognize that we actually live these seasons, these life cycles throughout our lives. And so first of all, we can even just talk about the cycle of a 24-hour day period, whether that's happening in the summer or that's happening in the winter. We have 24 hours in that day before we start another day. And so in that 24 hours, we can also look at it like the first, if we're looking at this, the first 6 hours is that darkness, right? We're in that darkness and the sun begins to rise. And then we're in the next 6 hours that's bringing us in. That could be the springtime. So that first part is the winter, right? And then the springtime is from 6 to noon. And then from noon to 6 is the summertime of our day. And then from 6 p.m. to midnight is the fall time of the day, the evening hours, as we move back to the next midnight point and we start the cycle over. So we're looking at how cycles are deeply integrated into our everyday life, and we may not even be aware of that, right? So this is about bringing awareness to our everyday human experience, right? And so looking even at, this image that's on the screen, especially when we look at the seasons and we look at multiple years, even like in 1 decade's time, And so even if we look at that decade, we even have a tree, and we're going to use the tree because we got a tree right here on this image. A brand new tree, first of all, when the trees, I'm going to even just use an acorn, for example. So we're going to go with the oak tree. So if that acorn is dropped and it goes beneath the earth, it's in the time of darkness. It's in the time of it preparing for what it's going to be. And it's through that darkness that that seed is becoming informed to the kind of oak tree that it's going to become, right? So it's living into its potential. And right then, during that time, is the potential phase. So that in springtime, that life begins to quake and quiver, and a shoot begins to come out of that acorn and breaks through the earth's surface to begin to see the sun. And within that sun period, this is the first spring. We're springing into life. We're above the darkness now into the light. And so it takes that oak tree a series of years to be a baby tree, right? And in that baby tree, it has to go through processes. It's going to, in order for it to survive, it's going to need its basic needs met. It's going to need water. It's going to need sunshine. If you were to put a bucket over it when it was a baby, is it going to grow? No. If it's in a place where it's not getting enough moisture or water, is it going to grow? Can you grow an oak tree down in Arizona or in, Sonora, Mexico, where there's not enough water for that? No, absolutely not. The conditions have to be right. And this is the conditions even as humans. We have to have these conditions, our basic human needs met for us to actually develop into these healthy, conscious beings. And if we don't get those conditions met, then there's going to be some different things that are going to cause either delays of growth. It might also kind of inhibit certain types of growth within, the tree. It might not be as strong. It may have become more susceptible even to bugs or parasites and things like that. So we look to see how we can even connect ourselves to life. We're using the tree, but you can use a rose bush. You can use a plant. You can use anything, like, anything that's living and growing, right? And an animal even, right? And so within that first part of that new life, we are in that springtime. That springtime has very important pieces that are required for our health and vitality, for our growth. And if we don't get them, we're not really going to be as strong when it comes to that time of our thriving. And then there's a certain point where we shift into that place that says, I'm established. I don't even need to be watered by the person growing me anymore. My roots are deep. I'm able to gather the moisture in the mornings or the little bit, the rains that come through. I don't need anybody to tend me anymore. I got this. I'm on my own here, right? I'm off on that. And then from there, that's the summertime, right? That's the summertime of the trees. And we're talking like over, I said a decade, but if we're looking at an oak tree, we can even look at 80 years, right? But it takes some time for that establishment. It takes some time to move into that next phase. And then, like everything, all things eventually die at some point. And that, and so it's like, where is that point? Where's that tree hitting its vitality? And it hits the prime of its life. And once we hit the prime of our life, we begin to decline. And we go into these different stages. That is part of our, as we decline, certain things aren't working the same way as they did when we were on the incline to hitting that really powerful place of our full energy and vitality. And so these cycles are important because these cycles also there's so many aspects to this. So there's so many different kinds of cycles as well. So we're just looking at this oak cycle, and then we're looking at then eventually there's a time that the tree has moved through its whole process. It's given many new life to a lot of baby acorns and other trees that are growing, and then it eventually dies, and it leaves behind its offspring. It leaves behind its replacements, right? Now, looking at just looking at the process of the wheel, looking at the process of our lives, looking at the process of a 24-hour day and what we were able to accomplish in that day, now moving ourselves into even a 28-day moon cycle, right? And so this is often around like a monthly moon cycle. And it's not just a monthly woman's menstruation cycle, however they are connected, right? But this is how we have the full moons. Let me start with the new moon. This is where we start with the new moon, and then we go to first quarter moon, and then we go to full moon, and we go to last quarter moon, and then we go back to new moon again. And so these cycles actually have these different energetic properties of the four seasons, of these four aspects that are happening within these cycles, right? Now, as we go through life, we are beings that go through these life cycles, and oftentimes these cycles have been acknowledged and they've been celebrated through rites of passage. So again, I talked about how in the, when we were as we move from child into adolescent into maturing, and especially with young women coming into their first periods, oftentimes in the past we celebrated that first rite or the first menarche. And menarche is the traditional word for when a woman begins to bleed, because throughout history, that was the defining moment of you are no longer a child, now you're a woman, and now you can have babies, and now for some cultures you can get married and start that process. Of course, we're looking way back at that time because that is not socially acceptable anymore, right? Actually, it's quite the opposite, because we've learned a lot about cognitive development and what it really means to kind of grow into these different cycles. And now we even look at the age of 25. 25, even in the United States, under insurance policies, kids up to the age of through their 25th birthday, but can still be under the insurance policy of their parent. And at 26, they're no longer viable because they've fully gone through. So now we're looking, instead of it being 15, now we're looking at it being 25, 10 years later. That 10 years has a lot of development, a lot of getting out into the world and understanding the way the world works. And so we're looking at how things have changed over the last couple hundred years. And that's necessary. That's what's happening in the evolution of our humanity, right? So through these different initiations, so then of course we come into these initiations, and then within these initiations, the ones that are celebrated is oftentimes then we find our partner, we get married, there's the initiation of being married. And then through the marriage, there's often, I don't want to say the initiation. I'm going to back up on that because we're not ready to talk about initiation, because that's actually not an initiation. There's the ceremony, there's the rite of passage of getting married. So just reframing and clarifying, because that was incorrect. And then usually through the marriage, now it's not always this way anymore, but then there is the creation of new life. Now the marriage, again, is you're leaving behind you being single, you as a solo person in the world, and you're creating a unity. You're leaving behind oftentimes your personal, your personal autonomy. You're no longer walking the world with just you in the way that you see it or want it to happen. Now you're having to come into union. You're going to come into having to make choices and decisions and having to work towards something, not as a solo person now, but as, a partnership, and whatever that is. And then oftentimes from there, we move into the next rite of passage, which is often childbirthing and bringing new life in and starting the cycle over with another being, right? And having that person come in. Now, these are the cycles that we celebrate and have been celebrated since time immemorial. These are major monumental cycles that are connected to the seasons of childhood into young adulthood, into becoming the adult and having the children, starting another cycle within that. Generational cycles are happening at the same time that all this is happening, right? And so, and oftentimes, so we're looking at these cycles that have been honored and celebrated. But there's also cycles that we all go through that we don't talk about. That these are the painful cycles. These are the cycles of sometimes of our disempowerment, of our frustration, of our difficulties. These are the cycles that we can kind of go through where a trauma has occurred at some point in our lives and put us into a whole different kind of cycle. But it's really important to understand the cycles, the way cycles work, so we know how to get through these. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take another break. And now we're going to dive deep into these cycles. And these come with an initiation process. It's also important for me to clarify about initiation processes because there's many different kinds. And this is the one I'm talking about for all humans because there's different other ones too. So clarify a little bit about that. Now, it's also a time that if you wanted to call in and ask any questions, you are welcome. The number is at the bottom of the screen. However, I have not had a single person call in yet, and this is episode 17. So we're going to just keep going. But if you have any questions, you are always welcome to call in and ask them. But we're going to go ahead and take a moment, and we'll see you back here in 2. Thanks.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, welcome back. I'm just laughing because I have somebody knocking at my door. It ain't happening though. Anyway, so I am talking about those rites of passages that are not necessarily honored because life is difficult and we don't necessarily celebrate the difficulties in life, right? And just to kind of finalize these rites of passages that we do honor. Oftentimes when we get through the marriage process and we have those babies and we're growing those babies and then we move into these different stages, we're moving into this place where, we have grown our family, We're moving into that place of retirement. Oftentimes we celebrate the big 50, the big 50 for people who are moving into a different stage of life. We also celebrate the retirement, usually around 65. And then we also celebrate our death rites, and we move into the death process. And those are definitely these parts of the cycle of life that have been celebrated since the beginning of time. Now, did we always live to be older than 65? No, not always. There's been times with disease and famine and all of that, most often the humanity didn't get to live very long lives. But again, I just want to finish that cycle, because now we're moving into these other cycles, these cycles of the process of working through traumas, working through the difficulties. And these are these cycles that we came into in these different incarnations to actually learn and to learn from. These are these cycles that actually initiate us into growing and expanding who we are on the spirit level. Because we talked about how the soul is our navigation device that brings us to all these people, these places, these experiences, to have them to inform and grow and expand our spirit. Our spirit is that part of us that is always returning in consciousness. Our spirit is consciousness. It's that conscious part that has gathered all the wisdom from all of our previous lifetimes. And again, now I just want to clarify, wisdom is what we gain, what we achieve through experience. We have to go through the experiences over and over and over again and be tested by them for us to gain the wisdom. And so even within wisdom circles and initiations, people can be initiated into the elder circle. They need to go through a period of life and through the trials and challenges that happen in life for them to actually enter into this stage of life. But it's through these trials, it's through these tests, it's also through achievements and successes and failures. Every one of that process is essential for us to actually move ourselves into what we could call a place, I want to say, mastery. This is where we recognize and live life. We've gone through it. And I'm just talking about moving into the wisdom circles council, like to be a council. And usually you're going to know life, you're going to know death. Important people are going to have died in your life. You're going to know abundance, and you're going to have no scarcity. You're going to know violence, and you're going to know joy and beauty. You're going to know all sorts of things. That's part of the human experience, part of the human condition. But you got to go through it. It's like being tumbled at the wave, if you're in a storm and the waves are intense and you're getting tumbled at the beach edge, right? You're right there and you're just kind of being tumbled in the water. It's like you have to go through the tumbling of life in order for us to fully arrive into this place, this initiated place that says you've gone through the process. Now, there's different types of initiations. There's spiritual initiations that in some cultures, people might die. And that's part of it. And of course, the belief system, the cosmology is okay, and they already know that it's not a one life theory for them, that they will come back and they will do it again. And those are different cultures at different times, and of course different times of civilization even and whatnot. But again, initiation is a process of what we go through, and it begins like these cycles. So the initiate begins, you start off as an initiate, and maybe you're an initiate of sexual trauma. This is where I'm bringing these things in. And I'm saying that, we have these traumas. Maybe you're an initiate of being in a relationship with a narcissistic partner. Maybe you're an initiate with being in a relationship with an alcoholic or violent partner. Maybe you're in maybe you're in a relationship as an initiate with betrayal and a partner who is unfaithful. So maybe you're an initiate of losing your child way before that child should have left us. So we go through these processes, and it's through these seasons that we experience the initiation process of the trials, of the tests, of the heartbreak, of the annihilation, of the joy that can come through surrender from doing the hard work, for being able to be like, holy shit, I experienced this horrible thing. And it defined me for a period of my time, my life. It stole my power. I felt depressed. I felt anxious. I felt overwhelmed. I felt alone. I felt whatever you felt, right? Like, these are the trials of humanity. We all have them in different ways. It's part of the human experience. Each one of us is going to have a very different version of it. Each one of us is on, that version to help inform us. And it's really about our choices that we make. How long are we going to be stuck in the cycle? How long is it? A 24-hour cycle? Is it a 28-day cycle? Is it how many years is the cycle going to tumultually throw us around in these different ways? And there's going to be times that we get joy. And then there's going to be times that we go back to the grief. And then there's times we're going to go back to the disempowerment. And there's the times that we're going to be like, no, I claim my power. I'm moving through this. But again, it's about the tests and the trials, and these take time. These take a period of time. We have to be tested over and over and over and over again. And then we're like, oh my God, I got this. I'm done. I finally have moved through this. I'm past this phase. And then, just to be tested, I'm going to say the benevolent beings, divinity comes down and says, we're going to give you one more shot at it. And then you get taken by it. And you're like, oh shit, I thought I just finished this. I thought I was through with this. Why? But you're still growing, you're still going through the cycles until that time comes and you're tested and you do it and you make it through. And that next time comes and you're tested again and you do it again and you make it through. And that next time comes and you do it again and you're like, hey, I'm getting the hang of this. This feels like I got this. And then the time comes when you get it, and you get it so powerfully that there's like an epiphany, an aha moment. You can never go back to the way that you were before. That there's an altered shift that happens within your being, your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, informing your spirit. You've arrived. And that's the final initiation. That's that part that says, I've made it through. I'm fully initiated. I can carry this medicine. We talk about our trials. We talk about those parts of our lives that we've struggled with, and those things. Those are the opportunities that grow us, so that in our next lives we don't have to ever do that again. We did it. But if we fall short and we only get halfway through it, it may come back again in the next lifetime to give us the full opportunity to overcome it, to really bring us into that place so that we can fully be in a higher state of awareness. And when we reach that higher state of awareness, we go into the elder circle. We know. We become the guru. We become the teacher. We become the one that says, hey, it's not going to look like you thought it did. It's going to look 100 million different ways. And it's about preparing you and about moving you through this. This is the initiation process. And this is a cycle. And the process is wholly dependent on your consciousness, on your awareness, on the willingness to work through it, on the willingness to make different choices. That's the initiation process to the final initiation, right? So we're going to take another break. We're coming to the end of our time here. When we get back, we're going to get connected into our own initiation process. So go ahead, take your break. I'll see you back here in 2.
Did you know that your Your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant. Like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. And we are talking about the initiation process of cycles that we go through. And oftentimes I was just saying that these cycles are oftentimes not cycles that we've ever wanted to go through, that they are given to us in these lifetimes completely uninvited. We're like, oh God, I certainly did not want that in my lifetime or in my life. But they are these extraordinary opportunities. And I know that even just looking at that as an extraordinary opportunity, and people are like, oh God, how can I even see this in that way? And that's part of the initiation process. It's part of understanding that it came into our lives for a reason. It came into our lives to expand us, expand our consciousness, to move into a different place of compassion, a place of forgiveness, a place of unconditional love. Those three are the human remedy for all things. And no, we don't need to have this wheel up at this time, so we can take that down. So we are going to take this time and get connected into ourselves. It's an invitation, as always. You're welcome to join. You're welcome to not join. About getting connected. And so as we look at these cycles of life, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and take 3 nice deep breaths, really kind of landing you into your body, into your energy. And bringing your awareness into your heart center. This is where everything happens. This is that connective piece. This is where we connect. We connect with our hearts, not our minds, not our root chakras, but with our hearts. And I invite you to look at your life wherever you are on your path. There are different people with different ages. And I invite you to look at the biggest obstacle. What was the biggest trial or challenge that you have had in your life? And even if you're young and you're like a teenager, what is the biggest challenge that you have already experienced or are experiencing? because this is the initiation process. You're being initiated in some way, and it's a cycle. And it has its spring season, its summer season, its fall season. And then within the fall, there's that death piece. It's the life, death, rebirth phase of our existence. This could be even within a relationship, one. It could be within an event. But it's an initiation that helps us know ourselves more deeply. It works us. It helps us reach a level of mastery. And I invite you to really be honest with yourself. Really get real with yourself, and you know what that is. Where are you in that process? Are you stuck in that process? And if you're not stuck, look back to the time when you were stuck. I invite you to connect in. Connect into all that you know about this process. What might this process have taught you or is teaching you? And because everybody is at a different place in life, or what might be the opportunity to learn. Ultimately, we are moving towards our greatest selves. So I invite you to look at yourself. And who do you see that you are in your greatest self? Your absolute greatest self. How would you be different than you are today? What might need to change within you to really arrive to that place of your greatest self? And what does that greatest self even look like for you? Because I encourage you to connect further. If it's about peace or ease or flow or joy or beauty or love, can you grow it even further? To be fully received, to be fully seen, to be fully known. These are often the things that we want most before we die, before that cycle within our lives finally comes to the life cycle end. We want to be seen and known. So I invite you, because we can all die at any moment. There is nothing, we can't take life and health for granted. So I invite you to look to see who knows you well. Have you been truly seen by those you love? Where are you in the process of this initiation? Are you complete? Who do you have that can help you if you're stuck? If I could just be with this, take this into your week. Take this into the cycles of the season, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the day. And I invite you to bring your awareness back into the present moment. Thinking your body, thinking your energy field, thinking your life, thinking all that has come forward for you in your life. And the opportunities that were given to you to help expand your consciousness, to connect deeper into what is all available for us. So as you return back into your body, thank you. If you are here with me in person tonight, thank you for joining me. If you are coming to watch this at a different date, thank you for being with us. It's always a pleasure to bring this information, to share, to expand, and to connect. I invite you to continue connecting as you go out into your evening, your day, your week. Enjoy. You're always welcome to reach back out to me at my website, www.andreadragonfly.com. Leave me a message on Facebook or Instagram at connected.dragonfly, and I will see you next week. All right. Be well.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.